Welcome to the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. Today is October 5th, 2023. This is episode number 168. My name's Andy Zee. I'm the host of the show, coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Shit's crazy. But this show's about a way out of the madness. This is a show about revolution. A real revolution to overthrow this system we live under. To abolish the U.S. Constitution and the institutions that govern this country today, and to establish a far better way for humanity to live under a fundamentally different system, governed by the Constitution, for a new socialist republic in North America. And the time when that could really be done is coming sooner than you think. Now is the time to prepare and get organized precisely for that revolution. You think that sounds crazy? It's crazy to go along with the way things are going. It's crazy what's being done to the masses of people of the world by this system that dominates the whole world, this system of capitalism, imperialism. And it's crazier still to not seek out, engage, and find out that there is a road to a far better way we could be living. But not to worry. There are answers here on the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. This system is crazy in its unending devastation of humanity and its threat to the future. Right now, 100 million and even more people walk across deserts and through dangerous jungles, risking everything, their lives, rape and assault, squalid refugee camps, risking all and leaving everything and everyone they love and knew behind. The climate, it's heating up, possibly reaching a point where human life won't be sustainable over much of the earth, and maybe even at all. The danger of nuclear war. And it's crazy that the wealthiest, most powerful country in the world that advertises itself with mountains of bullshit that it's the greatest country in the world, the fount of liberty and justice, robs, invades, destroys countries around the world, while hundreds of millions of people struggle to survive, and with millions without homes, health care, and enough to eat, and face a monstrous system of police brutality and mass incarceration right here in this country. Yes, shit's crazy. The MAGA crazies of the Republican Party of Trump are moving fast to crush any opposition to them, tearing up the way this country has been ruled in their race to seize total fascist power, to bring about and institute their blatantly racist, anti-immigrant, women-hating, anti-LGBTQ, environment-plundering program and their anti-scientific lunacy that they claim will make America great again. For the first time in the history of this country, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, one of the most powerful leaders of this country, that weasel Kevin McCarthy, a pathetic fascist, was removed from office by MAGA representatives of the House, even more viciously fascist than him. And after they did this, they decided to take the week off.
The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
For the first time in U.S. history, members of Congress have pushed out the Speaker of the House. With the Speaker removed, all business in the lower chamber must stop until a new Speaker is selected.
The House will be paralyzed. We can expect week after week of fruitless ballots while no other business can be conducted.
2. Trump has repeatedly called for firing missiles and sending troops into Mexico without that sovereign country even knowing, let alone giving the green light to such an action.
Proposed launching missiles into Mexico to destroy the drug labs. According to Esper, Trump said that we could just shoot some Patriot missiles and take out the labs quietly, adding that no one would know it was us. Sources in Trump's current presidential campaign say Trump wants battle plans for Mexico if he's re-elected, including unilateral strikes and boots on the ground.
And what spewed forth from his foul mouth that sounded beyond the pale has now more or less become the policy of all the Republican candidates for presidents.
So, as president, would you support sending U.S. Special Forces over the border into Mexico to take out fentanyl labs, to take out drug cartel operations? Would you support that kind of American military use?
Yes, and I will do it on day one.
3. As we reported last week, Trump implied and more or less said that General Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, should have been executed. We're going to have more to say about that later in today's program. 4. And take note of this. Trump has called for youth shoplifters to be shot before they leave the store. And not a word of dissent from the MAGA Republican Party.
And we will immediately stop all of the pillaging and theft. Very simply, if you rob a store, you can fully expect to be shot as you are leaving that store. Shot.
And the Democrats? They lower their glasses and gravely intone that we need bipartisanship with the less crazy fascists so we can govern.
And now we are working to get those bipartisan bills to the floor of the Senate. Our staffs are constantly talking to one another, not just about these first 3 bills, about all of them. And we're going to work very hard to get those bills to the floor.
The Democrats are seeking to maintain this horrific system in the traditional form in which it has existed for generations and has caused so much suffering for the masses of humanity, while the Biden Democratic administration is adopting policies that accelerate the destruction of the environment and are acting in ways that heighten the danger of nuclear war. So shit is crazy, but the question is, will it be crazy bad or crazy good? The RNL Show is crazy with real revolution, a real revolution which in reality is not crazy at all. It is the only way to free the people here and around the world from the madness and the destruction that this system is bringing down. The revolution, based on the work and the leadership of Bob Avakian, is, at this moment in history, the sane, rational, liberating, humane way forward to a world fit for humanity. We want to start today's RNL Show with one question and answer from the interviews we did a year ago with Bob Avakian here on the RNL Show. We asked Bob Avakian what he wanted to say to the youth who face the hardest hell under this system. Watch and listen, and think about the world today and the endless stream of this system's leaders and the wannabe leaders hustling to get in on this system, and then think about what you experience with B.A. Bob Avakian.
Well, you've led us right back to something we wanted to return to before wrapping up this interview, which is the tremendous potential that it's clear you see in those at the very bottom of society. Youth in particular, at the base of society, caught up catching the worst hell, the youth and others in the prisons, which you said the brother on the block or on the street, people who right now their guns are pointed at each other to way too large a degree. All of the vision of what you've described of what's possible to do with state power is not going to happen if we don't make a revolution. And yet this is a section of people who are very critical to the revolution we need. So I wanted to give you, and we wanted to give you one further opportunity to speak directly to those who are catching the worst hell and treated as the worst of the worst. What is their role in this revolution? And to those going out to them, how should we do this?
Well, I say there's both a personal dimension to this and a larger scientific dimension to it. I know that things have gone on for generations now. I mean, I know some people told us, well, you can't bring forward these youth. They might have been revolutionary once back in the day of the Black Panther Party or the 1960s. But there's been generation after generation caught up in this bad shit now, so there's no potential anymore. Yes, there is potential, and in one sense, it's exactly because they have been caught up in it generation after generation that there is potential. But you're not going to see it if you're just looking on the surface and what people are into. You have to go a little deeper with people. And I'll just introduce a personal dimension to this, which is very real for me. When I see, and whenever I get a chance to interact, and I do sometimes with some of these youth you're talking about, I see people that I knew when I was coming up. Not that came out of the same place they did, but people that I knew, and I know what their potential was. I've talked about this before. I've written about it before. I had a friend, Billy, who got into the life and got killed, while he's still in his 20s, caught up in a lot of bad shit and did bad shit. But also had a whole other side to him. Had a curious mind, a sharp mind, had a lot of very good, sentiments toward people, ways of relating to people. And, you could not have told me that somebody like that couldn't be transformed to become a revolutionary, because I knew better. And that's just a personal, and I knew other people in the same situation. I'm very fortunate to know people in this situation, people who opened their hearts to me the same way I did with them, that's what it means to be friends. And you learn what's deeper beneath the surface of what's going on and why people are into the bad shit they're in. And, how constricted, how limited and confined their lives are and their choices are, in terms of how things are presented to them. And so that's like, on the basis of that personal experience, I don't care that generations have gone, I don't care, but it doesn't tell me because generations have gone on that these aren't basically the same people. They are the same people, and when I interact with them, whenever I get a chance, and it's far too rare, but it's very precious, I know they're the same people. So that's on the personal level, from personal experience, but more scientifically, you can analyze where do the actual interests of these youth lie. Look, I've spoken this before, look what it means when even for a brief time, people in this situation rise above this. And I mentioned this prisoner strike in Alabama, and people are talking about how they've overcome the divisions of gangs and cliques and this kind of thing. It's not going to last because of the conditions they're in, but it's very significant and precious when it happens. Or, I've made this point about the truce that followed, the gang truces that followed the 1992, L.A. rebellion, which really wasn't just L.A. rebellion, it spread around the country. And, how hard people tried to overcome generations of divisions and back and forth revenge. To me, one of the most inspiring and moving things I've seen in decades was the picture after the L.A. rebellion. Besides, blacks and Mexicans together tonight with graffiti, there is a picture of a blood and a Crip with their arms around each other. And that wasn't just for show. That was something real and something deep. And they really tried to overcome this, and they put forward a program, but their program was just a program that had no basis, and it was also just actually mirroring this existing system. It was a program to establish more black businesses, to enable some of these people caught up in the gangs to get into, the economy by way of business and so on. And there's no economic basis for that on a broad scale. And it wouldn't lead to the liberation of people either, because, a few people might get into business, but then, most people can't. And plus the ones who do are going to be employing other people and exploiting them, whether they mean to or not. But still, look how hard people tried. And there was a prisoner, strike in California a number of years ago, the same kind of thing. Yeah, the gangs are still in there, and yeah, there's bad shit, but they rose up and overcame that for a short period of time. And that shows the potential, and it also shows that there's something deeper in people than what they're doing every day and what they're caught up in. That they reach for something better, something higher. They want something different, and if you get people away from what they're caught up in and talk to them heart to heart, they will tell you in many cases, most people want something different, even if they're caught up in this and they don't know how to get out of it. And that's where we come in, the revolutionaries, the people who have come to understand that there's a whole different way. We have to go to these youth and others. Yes, we need to go to the educated youth. You're not going to make a revolution without people from the educated youth. That's very important for the revolution, including critical and creatively thinking people who have a capacity to, work and grapple with complicated ideas. We need that. But your question is very much to the point about, these more, youth down on the street, the hardcore youth, there is burning within them because nobody wants to live the way these youth are being forced to live. You could take maybe a few, really into it, and this is really their thing, but nobody, if you're talking about, I shouldn't say nobody, but overwhelmingly, people don't want to live the way people we're talking about are forced to live. But this system, we could go into why and how. It deindustrialized a lot, all these areas that people live in, like the south side of Chicago. Used to be these factories, a gigantic steel plant, U.S. Steel, that people used to work at. Gary, Indiana, which is now a ghost town, had the biggest steel plant in the entire world, I think, going back a few decades. And a lot of black people worked there. Those places are closed down. These youth coming up, they have no future. And that's because of the workings of this system. And there is a burning down there. It may be simmering. It may be just a flickering flame, but there is a burning for something better. And it is up to us to provide the vehicle and the means for all these masses of people in this situation, including these youth, to become part of fighting for something better. And yes, it goes back to the previous thing. We're not going to do it without a lot of struggle. You got to break through the surface. You got to break through the bullshit. You got to break through even the hardcore shit to get down to where people really live and feel. And then you got to struggle with them about what your life should really be all about. What is really worth dedicating and if necessary, even giving your life to? Not that we take that lightly. We certainly don't. We understand that, as Mao said, of all things in the world, people are most precious. And people's lives are precious to us. But even if you have to give your life, give it for something worthwhile, something that's going to mean something for you and people like you all over the world and for the little ones. And don't tell me you don't love the little ones. I see you out there pushing the little ones around. I see the pride that you have in the little ones. So don't tell me you don't care. Because I know different and I know better. And there is a way, but we got to give people the way. And that means a tremendous amount of struggle. It's not just handing them away and they're going to take it. It's a tremendous amount of struggle. And we have to also, especially in this rare time when revolution becomes more possible, we have to get right down on the ground with them and explain in terms they can understand, and then get more into the complexities as we go along. But get to the basic thing that there is a way out of all this. And right now we have more opportunity than we've had in your lifetime or my lifetime to do this. And we can't afford to be wasting this time and this opportunity in bullshit. We got to get with this revolution so we can get all this shit off of our backs. And make a future for the next little kids you're pushing along that's worth living for, so they don't have to go through what you are going through now, which isn't what you wanted to go through, but it's what the system has put you in the place of to have to go through. We have to go and present this to them in a living way. There is a way out of this. It's not an easy way. It's not a guaranteed way, but it's a real way. It's a real possibility, especially in this time when we're talking about where the conditions are more favorable for revolution, even as they're tending right now towards something terrible. With the ruling class divided and fighting each other, with society being ripped apart, with the potential for this to rip apart all the dominant institutions in society. One of these youth said, well, if I get with your revolution, my chances of being taken out are just about 100%. But if I do what I'm doing, going up against people like me, maybe my chances are 50-50. Well, that's just wrong, like I've said before. It's wrong in terms of what your life should be about, and it's wrong in terms of, the possibilities for revolution. Because we have a real strategy, and we have a real, method. to grapple with the problems that lie on the road to revolution and actually break through and gather more and more forces to where a revolutionary struggle for power could actually have a chance to win. And you can't ask for more than that. You can't ask for more than a chance to win to get this whole fucking thing off your back. And this is what we're aiming for, and this is what we got to take to people and explain to them and struggle like hell with them about what speaks to their deeper feelings and hopes and aspirations, not just the shit they're caught up in on the surface. So I say, both from personal experience, which is limited, I know, but it tells me something, but also by scientific analysis and by learning from all different kinds of sources and getting every bit of knowledge I can, that there is a potential there. And we have to go and make that potential become a reality and struggle with people to become emancipators of humanity. And we start winning some, it's going to provide the basis to win more. And it's going to become a pole of attraction. And what people would really like to jump to will start getting expressed when they see a growing force out there that's real. And so this is my answer. We got to, we have what these youth and the mass of people need, but it includes a lot of struggle with them, and we have to go and take that to them and wage that struggle, because this is for ending all the shit that they're being forced to go through, and all the shit that humanity is being put through and that they're threatened with now, with the destruction of the environment and this danger of nuclear war among these imperialists. We have to go to the people and give them the means to do what deep down they would love to do if they could understand scientifically that there's a basis for it. So that's what I would say.
That was the revolutionary leader, Bob Avakian, from the interview we did with him last year on the RNL Show. And this is the perfect moment to welcome the co-host of the RNL Show, Sunsara Taylor.
Well, it's the perfect time to arrive on the show, and I'm really glad to be with you, Andy. And I want to welcome everybody tuning in across the country on YouTube, as well as our new podcast format. So very excited to be here. So the big thing I want to introduce this week is a major new strategic document that appeared on Revcom.us, a really amazing and path-breaking piece. It's called Revolution, Building Up the Basis to Go for the Whole Thing with a Real Chance to Win. And it's a strategic orientation and a practical approach. And so we want to talk a little bit about the significance of this. And we wanted to start by you reading the first few lines of it to let people get a sense of it.
Yeah, I did want to, and I am going to read it. I just wanted to say that last segment we thought from last Q&A that we just played from Bob Avakian is really, really incredible. And he ends with saying, if you have a chance to actually make a revolution, to get this system off the back of the masses of humanity, you really can't ask for more than that. And so this piece that building up the basis to go for the whole thing with a real chance to win begins like this. It says, if you don't understand why we need a revolution and how that revolution could be possible, then you don't know what you need to know. And then it goes to a quote from Bob Avakian where he says, fundamentally, people cannot imagine this because they are not approaching things with a scientific outlook and method. And he goes to this next. We are serious. We are working for a real revolution and a whole new emancipating way to live. So that's from the beginning of the document, but it comes up all the time when you're talking to people, whether you're in a living room or out on the street. People say, but, I just don't think this is possible. How are you going to get from where you're at today to where you're trying to go?
Yeah, it's a huge question. And we're really fortunate that the work has been done. Bob Avakian has developed a strategy. He's developed a vision of the society we're fighting for. And he's broken this down in the interviews. We'll talk more about that. But it's distilled in this document. And I think it's important. What is a strategic orientation? And what is a practical approach? It's, if you think about if you're going to play basketball, what's the strategic orientation of the basketball game? What's your approach to defense? What's your approach to offense? How do you know when you switch from principally one to the other? How are you going to play any given game? There are principles and a strategy for how you're attacking the game as a whole. But then you have to apply that strategy. What's your practical approach at any given time? What plays are you making? What combinations are you doing? How do you carry that out to get to your goal? And this document is describing a strategic orientation to go from, exactly like you said, the situation today where almost nobody is thinking about revolution, where things are accelerating towards shit's crazy. You're right. Towards madness and greater horror and destruction. Humanity's future is on the line. And people are all messed up thinking about all kinds of ways of avoiding this, contributing to the madness. How are you going to get from this situation to where you have millions, literally millions and millions in this country who are prepared to put it all on the line to bring this system down and bring something much better into being through a revolution? This document, and there's never been anything like this in this country before, breaks down how we get from here to there.
As the piece began, people have a hard time understanding this because they don't have a scientific approach to it. A scientific approach would tell you that things don't proceed in a linear way. For a number of years, there were struggles around police brutality, police murder of black and brown people, one after another. But then in 2020, when George Floyd was suffocated to death, a horrendous thing, 15 million people came out into the streets. And of course, this document talks about how that couldn't succeed because people didn't really understand that it was the system that was, the system was the cause of this, and it couldn't be reformed. You can't just say, we're going to abolish the police under this system. Imagine if millions were in the street demanding a revolution. We're going to a situation that's developing where there could be a major crisis in society with millions of people not wanting to live in the way they're living. And this document is saying, how do we prepare now for that situation where we could really change things? There's 10 points in here. And the second one ends with this. We're going for a situation where there are people who are won in increasingly greater numbers to the actual revolution that is urgently needed. And they need to be led to have a clear understanding of the need, and they need to be in position to wage a powerful struggle to determine the whole direction of things in the midst of an acute crisis in order to carry things forward to the only real positive solution, a truly emancipating revolution. And everything we do now from here forward has to be oriented to creating the basis for this. And then it goes on to, well, how do we start? Yeah, so like Andy just said, there's 10 points in this document, and you really have to go to revcom.us. You have to read the whole thing, download it, dig into it, spread it, talk with others about it, comment about it below in our comments section, and wrestle with us. Let us know what you're thinking about in this and spread it. But because it paints the picture of this revolutionary crisis, how it could be wrenched about. It paints a picture of and points you to where you can learn more about the strategy for how the revolutionary people and their millions would defeat and dismantle the enforcers and the institutions of the other side to implement a new society. But as you said, in point 3, which we want to zero in on in this, it talks about what we need to be doing now. And it talks about the need for people who want revolution to stand up, to fight the power, and to transform the people, struggle with the thinking of people for revolution, build up the organized forces for revolution. It talks about this show, the role of this show in training and organizing and influencing millions, but also training a revolutionary leadership. It talks about the interviews we did with Bob Avakian on this show, which we're going to speak more about. And it stresses the importance in this of lifting people's sights. Lifting people's sights out of what they think is the only thing possible, scuffling to get on with their lives within this system, accepting the choices given to them by this system, or as things intensify, choosing between the two factions of the ruling class, both of which are murderous enforcers of a ruthless system. How do we need to,
And this gets into how we can lift people's sights so that as this crisis is developing, as things are intensifying, they are increasingly being one to see that we need to fight to bring this whole system down and bring about a whole different way to live. And there's the Constitution that Bob Avakian authored that's pointed to here. And there's the role of people meeting Bob Avakian directly through the interviews that we did with him and in other ways to get to know the leadership, the vision of the new society, the character of this revolution. This is just, it's a game changer.
I think you get a sense of that game changer in the segment we just watched. If you watch the whole interviews, you're really getting a 360 view of the whole revolution and the many facets of Bob Avakian and the integrity and the fact that what's extremely unique here is that he's a theoretician on the highest level. He's solved problems that most people haven't even thought of in terms of how we get from where we are at now in a society marked by patriarchy and nationalism and superstition and a class society, and how we get from there to a world that has overcome all forms of exploitation and oppression, solving some of the thorny issues in the first stage of revolution, and that he does it with such an incredible connection to the masses of people. This gives people hope. It's a positive vision of a person and of a leadership and of a new society and of a movement that you should really want to be a part of. And one of the things that's so unique about this is all that theoretical stuff is combined with somebody who's able to break it down. You just experienced that. I see you, he said to the youth. I see that you care. I see you pushing the little ones. This is somebody who can take the most advanced theoretical understanding that he's developed and break it down such that anybody can understand it and take it up themselves to be part of the movement for an actual revolution.
So we've given just a taste of what you get in this document. Is major new. I cannot stress how significant this piece is. Revolution, building up the basis to go for the whole thing with a real chance to win. Think about that. A strategic orientation and a practical approach. This, it spells it out. It breaks it down. This has got to be something that you and others, you get together, read it, immerse yourself in it, grapple with it, study it, and use it as a measure, a practical measure to everything we're doing to fight for this revolution.
Climate devastation, nuclear war threats, the direct danger of all-out fascism. Times like these demand a revolutionary answer. If you're anywhere near Los Angeles, come to a special screening of selections of the Bob Avakian Interviews Tuesday, October 17th at the Hudson Theater, and watch this.
The climate, what's happening with it is way bigger than the individual. The threat of nuclear war is way bigger than any individual. The mass shooting of black people, Latinos, and Native Americans by police is way bigger than any individual. You know, the constant brutality, even by intimate loved ones against women. How in the world are you going to solve that? Any of those things I just mentioned by everybody going for themselves and staying in your lane. As I point out to people, we need to make people aware that staying in your lane will not protect you from being run over by the system. These things have to be solved by people recognizing what's going on, getting to the root of it, and then acting collectively to transform all this. And it doesn't mean individuals don't count. Of course they count. But that's in the context of the larger things that are going on.
Bob Avakian is completely different than all these bourgeois, capitalist, politicians, and so-called leaders that are put forward. He is hardcore for revolution, with a largeness of mind, generosity of spirit, lively sense of humor, all of which come through in these interviews. If you don't think you have to watch these interviews, why the hell not? And if you haven't seen these interviews, you don't know what you need to know. If you're agonized about the future, this is a special opportunity to come together with other people who feel like you, from different backgrounds, different perspectives, to experience these interviews together, to discuss, to debate why we need an actual revolution, to meet these leadership, and to be able to get into what kind of society after this revolution. So look, this is worth your Tuesday evening. Buy your tickets today.
October 17th at the Hudson Theater here in Los Angeles. It's a Tuesday evening, 7:30 p.m., as you just heard from Michelle Chai. We are going to be hosting an evening screening of the Bob Avakian Interviews. It's going to be a very special evening, a selection from the interviews, a chance for people to come together in person, to get into these interviews, to engage them together with others. And Andy and I will be there live in person. We're going to be interviewed by David Zeiger, a filmmaker who's been on this show before, who made the film Sir No Sir and a number of other films, is going to be asking us some questions about what it was like to do the interviews, a chance for the audience to both hear from BA directly and our conversation, and then a whole evening we'll tell you more about in a minute. But we intend to make this the launch of what needs to become a whole movement of screenings and gatherings of people watching and getting into this interview in theaters, on street corners, in classrooms, in living rooms all across this country. So this past weekend, Michelle hosted a meeting of the Revolution Club here in Los Angeles. And Andy, you were the special guest. And a big feature of this meeting was was talking about the importance of October 17th and wrangling with how to fight to bring others together to watch this.
Yeah, there was important discussion there. Including about the struggle we have to wage with everyone over these interviews, and we showed the same question and answer, the message to the youth from Bob Avakian that we showed at the beginning of the program. And people were really gripped by it. They were really leaning into it, hanging on every word. And then we spoke of what happens when people watch BA, how it kindles or rekindles a very visceral feeling, a sense that we could be different people, that there's another way the world could be, a sense that they have to do something. Often you have this experience, I think I might have mentioned this last week, that, they come out of this and people talk about how they need to change because they've been moved by the sense of possibility. So Michelle introduced the meeting, talked about the Revolution Club, and then she told a story that she often does about the first time she saw Bob Avakian. And after she told us, I'd heard this before, but it really struck me, and I just threw out what I was going to say and responded to her. So we want to play that because I think it got to the role that Bob Avakian can play and what he's done. So let's watch that first.
This is one thing I like to share with people. When I first came around to this revolution and I heard Bob Avakian speak, I realized he was more angry at the things that I was seeing on a daily basis, and it made me question, why am I not angrier? And this guy is actually, really feeling all the shit that I'm seeing on a daily basis that I've just internalized and accepted, and not just did exposure on it, but fought through on there's a way out of this. We don't have to live this way. We can actually live a whole different way. And people that care about this need to be part of this revolution. So people need to know we have this kind of leadership in this moment and get into the works of Bob Avakian.
Michelle said that Bob Avakian, I think you put it, Bob Avakian was more angry at the things that you were living. I think that's it. Than you were. That really, I've heard you say that before, but it struck me today what the import of that was. It made me think about how prevalent that must be among so many young people and older people in the community that we're speaking in today and throughout society. Why was he angrier? That's a question to think about. And we watch the interview. I want you to think about what he says in this particular segment. Well, for one thing, people may hate the way they're forced to live, the way your teachers spoke to you, the way people in other parts of town looked at you when you went shopping, the way your mother struggled. But you didn't know that it was unnecessary. You thought it was eternal. You thought that's just the way it is, because it was just the way it was for you. But Bob Avakian, we say this a lot, has further developed this scientific approach of dialectical materialism, which is actually the theory behind communism. He looks below that surface and sees that how we live today hasn't always been how humanity lives, and it's not how we have to live in the future. So he's angrier about this than you were, because he sees it's not necessary. And he's gone to work over decades to figure out how we can make an actual revolution to get this monster off the back of the people of the world and people like you. And he looks at people like you, and he doesn't see some ignorant person of a color or this or that. He sees a potential emancipator of humanity. He believes in you more than you believe in yourself, because he knows that the way we are is something that's conditioned by and enforced by a system that exploits and oppresses people here and around the world. And I say enforce, it is enforced. You know, we all hate the cops that fly around like fucking buzzards in their black and white helicopters that come down and oppress the masses of people and even shoot them in the streets. We hate how the teachers do us. We hate the fact that it's so goddamn hard to get a decent health care. But see, Avakian has gone deeper into why that is so, how it's rooted in the system, and how that system is vulnerable, especially right now. Especially right now. Fucking madness out there right now. But part of that madness is that there is a section of the people who rule over us who no longer believe in the way that this country has been ruled, the normal way it's functioned, the peaceful transfer of power every 4 years. They don't believe in that. They believe that God has anointed the most outrageous person ever to walk the face of the earth, the orange-tinted, as a friend of mine says, Donald Trump, who promises to upend everything and to represent the interests of a section of people. And because of this, there's the potential for revolution. There's a potential for people to begin to see how things could be different. If, and only if, each and every one of you here digs deeply into the work of Bob Avakian, particularly about this rare time, the two pieces that Michelle just spoke about, gets into these interviews and into a piece that's coming out on Revolution, the website revcom.us on Monday, and goes to work and struggles with people to see what Michelle experienced when she experienced Bob Avakian in a film, and say, my God, this guy's angrier about my conditions than I am, because there's a way out of the madness. He sees the unnecessariness and he sees the potential. And last, which I think you mentioned, Bob Avakian's written a constitution for a new socialist republic in North America that actually lays out a blueprint for how we could do different. So that came early in the program, and I asked people a few questions. I asked them, have you shown this to friends, and do you try to show this to friends? And then I asked them, if you do, and they say, no thanks, I don't want to watch that, do you struggle with them? And then I also asked, how do you struggle with them? What do you say to them? And there were different things people said. But one young person said that one of the things he gets from his friends is saying, I'm not political. And this is part of how I responded to that.
I guess one of the questions that I have is how to deal with people that claim they don't care about politics. Either it's from a apolitical sense of, oh, they don't care about it, or it's from a more nihilistic sense of, oh, my voice doesn't matter, my actions don't matter, this, that, and the other. How would you kind of agitate with them and kind of have that kind of conversation with them of, oh, you do matter, like all these big ideas do matter, we can change things on a big scale? Then
people say, I'm not political, what difference is it going to make? It's completely unacceptable. What it is accepting is the possible extinction of humanity and the horrors that people go through every day. So it's unacceptable answer, but it's accepting what is. And what is terrible. You may not be political, but political is doing to you and doing to humanity. And it's the politics of a monstrous class of people, a monstrous system. At any time, to not stand up. Now, I'm an atheist, but I'll say to not stand up for the least of these, to not stand up for those people who are being ground down, and understand that it's not one or two people, it's tens and hundreds of millions of people in this country and billions of people around the world. And your privilege to be, and I'm going to use that word here, your ability to not care is on the blood and the bones of those kids who are in a coltan mine in the Congo, so you can waste humanity's time while you're on your goddamn phone. We got to struggle hard with people. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about when they say they're not political. They're not facing up to what is going on in humanity. This is not some cute thing here, climate devastation, nuclear war threatened, the direct danger of all-out fascism. Are you kidding me? This is what's happening in the world. When people say, they say, well, do you think it matters what's happening with the climate? That there's right now 100 million people walking through deserts and jungles and getting on the top of trains where most of the young women who are doing this with their families are going to be raped, only to come to a border to face armed guards, some who represent the U.S. government, others whom are just vigilantes on the border. Do you understand what's going on in the world? Do you want to look away from that? Because it is coming for humanity. And you can make a difference. We can't accept this from people. This is just saying, I'm good with it, man. I'm really good with it. There's a bunch of fools out here, but they've been kept ignorant. And I have to say, it's on us. It's on each of us here to wage that struggle. And you know what? When you're waging the struggle, you're going to find yourself at a certain point at a loss for words. Okay? You're just going to say, I don't know. I just don't know. Then what have you got? You've got 5.25 hours of interviews. I mean, why can't we say to people, you've spent a good deal of time in the last couple of days watching television or playing video games or simply running around to keep food on the table for your kids, which of course matters. You can spend an hour sitting with me and watching somebody who has an answer that I think makes sense. If you can't do that, who are you? What kind of conscience do you have?
All right, so that is just a sense of the meeting that you guys had, but I think it's important. I mean, you were speaking on the real with people about what time it is, what's going on in this world, what we need to wake people up to. And I think it's a good model of how we have to go out and really be on fire to wake people up and shake them up and compel them and invite them and inspire them to watch these interviews and then follow through on what that touches in them. So there are, 3 main reasons we've been popularizing on Revcom.us, and the people going out inviting have been giving 3 reasons you need to come if you're in LA or can get to LA on October 17th to the Hudson Theater. And these 3 reasons are reasons that, at least some of them you can take out and argue with your friends why they need to watch the interviews wherever you are. But number 1 is what time it is in the world. As you said, these are not cute things, phrases, climate destruction, threat of nuclear war, the real and immediate danger directly posed of a fascist takeover in 2024, if not sooner. In a time like this, there's a demand. It demands a revolutionary answer. And we put straight up, isn't it time for you to come together with others to engage Bob Avakian, who's developed a way out of this madness and a whole vision of a whole different way the world could be? That's reason one. Two, Bob Avakian has come through in this evening's program as a leader unlike any other political leader on the scene today. He's completely unlike the endless stream of bourgeois that is ruling class politicians and leaders who are selling you on fixing this system up or finding your place within it. He is really fighting for a real revolution and a whole nother way to live. And he's put his heart and soul, his sense of humor, his hardcore determination, and a poetic spirit into this. And all of that comes through in these interviews, and you have to watch them. And the third reason is you have the chance to come together with others. People who are like you and people who are nothing like you, but they share in agonizing about what humanity is facing right now. And they are searching for a way out, and they have the integrity to do so. And you're going to be together with them, and you're going to be in a theater where we watch these special selections from Bob Avakian. And then Andy and I will be in conversation. We'll be interviewed by David Zeiger, like I said, the filmmaker of Sir No Sir and other films, and somebody who himself is really going to be, I don't know what he's going to be asking us.
I can tell you one thing, he's going to ask us hard questions. Because he knows what the questions are that are out there. He's not going to tell us the questions, but he did say they're going to be the tough questions.
Well, that's good, and he should. And it's all the more reason to come together and hear this engaged live in person. Afterwards at the Hudson Theater, there's a really nice cafe next door. We're going to invite people to gather and keep talking, keep wrangling. And then this needs to, once again, be a kickoff of a whole movement of spreading these interviews all throughout society and gathering people together to watch them, to discuss them, and to make them a force in changing what people dream of, what they live for, what they fight for, and what we give to future generations by giving everything we can to make this revolution real. So we want to invite you to spread this wherever you are and to get there October 17th at the Hudson Theater here in Los Angeles if you can make it.
And that's just the beginning of the movement around these interviews we did with Bob Avakian on the RNL Show. And next we have Lenny Wolff speaking about what I mentioned at the top of the show, Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who Trump said should be executed, or he implied that in any case, and the all that concentrates about the time we're in now, the sharpness of the crisis at the top of the ruling class, and he goes into American chauvinism. So let's watch Lenny Wolff.
On Friday, September 22nd, former President Donald Trump strongly implied that the top military officer in the United States, Mark Milley, deserved to be put to death. Trump was responding to the fact that shortly after the attempted coup Trump led on January 6, 2021, Milley had notified his Chinese counterpart that things were stable within the U.S. Trump wrote on his social media platform that this was, quote, an act so egregious that in times gone by, the punishment would have been death. Yet where were the headlines on Saturday or Sunday of last week, blaring out, former president and current favorite for Republican nomination implies that current army head should be executed? Nowhere. So 3 points on this. First, the splits among the rulers are growing more intense and more normalized at the same time. Second, as the political situation intensifies further, these splits will reach into every institution. And third, the interests of the masses of people do not lie in choosing sides, between these two factions of the rulers, but in seizing on this divide to fight for a real revolution, a radically different system, and a whole better way to live. Let's start with the first point. Think how deeply those who rule this system must be split if, at the very top, the head of one section publicly goes to the brink of threatening to execute a top military figure in the other. But that's not all. There was at first very little reaction to it. No headlines, barely even a mention. And when Biden finally did speak out on this, it was 6 days after the fact. This is normalization. And the effect of this is to lull the decent people, whom the Democratic Party views as part of their base, to keep them quiet and passive. We have to go against that. We have to shake people awake to the fact that something even more horrific than what passes for normal in this society is moving more aggressively all the time. Second, these splits will not go away. Indeed, over the next year, it is almost certain that they will sharpen as the trials of Trump develop and the question of the election looms. An election which these fascists will not recognize as legitimate unless they win. Bob Avakian has analyzed that, as is becoming more clear every day, there are deep and continually deepening divisions, not only in this country overall, but among the ruling powers of this system. One part of those ruling powers, represented by the Republican Party, no longer believes in or feels bound by what have been the cohering norms of democratic capitalist rule in this country. This is leading and will increasingly lead to further deepening divisions and bitter clashes throughout society as well as at the top. All the ruling institutions of this system will be increasingly affected by this. Let me repeat that. All the ruling institutions of this system will be increasingly affected by this. The polarization will continue to sharpen, with forces grouped around and led by the Republican Party becoming even more aggressive in insisting on imposing, including by violent means, their vision of what makes America great, with all the very real horrors on top of horrors that this involves. This kind of split, which involves which section of the ruling class can wield legitimate force, would be a key component of a revolutionary situation. Such splits could make it more difficult to just outright crush outpourings of the people, at least initially. But third, for anything good to come of this, there must be a fierce fight waged for revolution and against any belief in saviors from the ruling class, including saviors from the military, beginning now. And this has to happen as part of a struggle, a revolution for a whole new way to live and a fundamentally different system. Now, such a split within the ruling institutions could very possibly occur as part of a major crisis around a move to war, an attempt to steal an election, the conviction of Trump in one of his trials, or some event that's not even on the horizon. But for something positive, let alone emancipating, to come out of it, it would take monumental efforts by revolutionary forces, working on this then, but working on it now and urgently. In this light, it's worth thinking back to the situation in Egypt in 2011. Thousands were in the streets, demanding a change in the form of rule. The army stood aside from the hated strongman Mubarak and offered themselves for leadership. The slogan arose that the people in the army are one hand, and this became extremely popular. And through the course of a complicated series of struggles, a group of army generals did succeed in coming to power. What's been the result? One of the most repressive societies in the world, with over 60,000 political prisoners, as well as the widespread demoralization of an inspiring uprising of millions that was led right back into the killing confines of this system. The pull on the millions to believe in the army was very strong in that situation. The fear of having to go up against the armed might of the state was one element. Another was nationalism, and a third critically important factor was the fact that people did not have a vanguard leading them with a different vision of how we could live and a way to fight for it. In the situation we face today, things like this make it even more important to spread the understanding that there is nothing to uphold in the Mark Milleys of the world. Milley, and now his successor, Charles Brown, were and are nothing but enforcers of the most violent, oppressive, exploitative empire the world has ever known. They rose to the top of it through their effectiveness in organizing and deploying others to carry out mass slaughter against oppressed people in other countries of the world. Milley himself commanded soldiers in the criminal U.S. invasions of or occupations of Panama, Somalia, Haiti, Iraq, and Afghanistan. In Iraq alone, the utterly unprovoked, unjustified, and criminal American invasion directly led to the deaths of roughly 300,000 people, with an estimated 600,000 to 900,000 more deaths caused by the indirect causes brought on by the destruction of public health and other causes. The invasion of Iraq, as well as these other invasions Milley so proudly struts his medals from, were war crimes. So while Trump is clearly a genocidal fascist, these people like Milley are not heroes or protectors. They are smooth-talking monsters and war criminals. This army, these leaders, must not be what people rally around in the event of a future all-out crisis in society. But the struggle to prevent that cannot wait until the crisis arises. The struggle to break people away from any allegiance whatsoever to these armed forces must start today. Milley himself, in justifying his actions in 2020 and 2021 to forestall Trump's attempt to steal the election, makes a big deal out of the fact that the U.S. military personnel swear an oath to defend the Constitution, and not any particular commander-in-chief.
This military, this soldier, me, will never turn our back on that Constitution.
But have you ever asked yourself, what's that Constitution all about? Here, the words of the recently published Allegiance ring out very sharply.
To people everywhere, in every part of society, the cause we should be dedicated to and the allegiance we should hold is represented not by the U.S. Constitution, a document written by and serving the interests of slave-owning and capitalist exploiters from the founding of this country down to today, a document that elevates property and the right to enslave and exploit above and against the life and liberty of billions of people here and throughout the world. A document that for nearly 100 years institutionalized owning Black people as property. A document that has been repeatedly used and is used today to legalize inequality, injustice, and oppression, with whole groups of people treated as second class and less than fully human. We can do much better than this.
The cause we need to be dedicated to is revolution. To abolish and uproot this system we are now forced to live under, and bring into being a new system based on the Constitution for the new socialist republic in North America, which provides a sweeping vision, a firm foundation, and concrete blueprint for a radically different and emancipating society and world, with the abolition of all inequality, oppression, and exploitation.
The question at this point is not whether we are heading into times of even more extreme crisis and danger, times which pose the very definite trajectory of something really terrible. Something like the Milley incident makes that truth even more plain. The question is whether those who can't stand the way things are now, who can see the even worse dangers lying ahead, and who hunger for something emancipatory, will come forcefully and urgently together to shake awake, to challenge, and to organize the thousands, and then the millions, into a force conscious enough for the need for revolution to see through whatever false paths are put forward at that time of crisis, and to wrench emancipation out of what will be a complex and dangerous, but also potentially extremely promising situation. Allegiance, the piece you just heard people read from, is a key tool in that must be spread and must be wielded. And there really is not a minute to lose.
Okay, with that, this has brought us to the end of this, the 168th episode of the RNL, the Revolution Nothing Less show. Andy, any final words?
Well, just if you're in Los Angeles, come to the Hudson Theaters in Hollywood on the 17th of October, and elsewhere. Start spreading these interviews and plan showings, big and small, in your cities, and become a patron to the RNL show, and write your comments down below as to what you thought about today's show, questions you have, and whatever you want to write. They're very important. I think what we're going to do is say goodnight, and we'll see you next week. Again, thanks to the crew of the RNL show. We'll be back here next Thursday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Central time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And with that, good night.
Good night.